Good evening, breeders. Let's go.
Right, welcome to our first of our summer webinar series. And wow, what an amazing scenery we've got here right around us. We've got foals all around us, and this is just the perfect scene for a lovely summer's day. And tonight, we're not talking about breeding for a change, we're talking about worming and how the importance of worming is to your mare and foal. We'd love to know where you're calling from tonight. We only put this out 2 weeks ago. We've already got over 400 people sign up for this. So I think that just shows the importance from 30 different countries. Incredible. I have to thank you so much. We'd love to hear where you're calling from, whether it's another country or which country you're in or wherever it is. We'll try and give you a shout out. Emma, you'll give us a shout out where they are. So do let us know. It's always really fascinating for us. Pop your questions into the Q&A. As you'll see in a minute, we have got a mega lineup of people tonight to ask their advice all about worming. We really have. It's gone off the scale on that side of things. So please put your Q&As. Remember, last time we got so many people asking questions. If we don't answer them tonight, I promise you, we will get back to you. I'm putting this all on Rebecca now. She'll answer all the questions later, but we will do that. So leading on to that, I say the star lineup, we've got my brother Edward, who's really in charge tonight. I'm just
This lady is.
Rebecca, and it was down to Rebecca's idea. This is so important. So thank you for Rebecca putting this. And obviously, you know, a lot of people know Rebecca. She's one of the vets here that work with Edward, and we're going to learn all about his paddock management and everything else. Also, we've got Olivia here, who's going to be keeping an eye on us and taking pictures and seeing the questions coming in. We've got Emma as well, and Alex is going to be talking to us about doing fecal egg counts as well. Alex later on, so that's going to be brilliant. But we've got a star-studded lineup tonight. Amazing. We've got Tim Mayer. So welcome, Tim. Tim is one of the world's most respected veterinary surgeons, internationally recognized for his pioneering work in equine internal medicine, and honored with a Lifetime Achievement Award for his outstanding contribution to the horse industry. So thank you, Tim. I really appreciate coming on board tonight and giving us your worlds of wisdom, really all about this subject. Diane Gilby is a highly respected equine parasitologist. Is that how you say it? I can see you've been a dyslexic. I think we should shorten these words a little bit. And founder of Intelligent Worming, widely recognized for her work educating horse owners and breeders in sustainable parasite control and reasonable and responsible worming practices. And Lara Peachy, she can't join us tonight, but we are going to be showing a video. So we'll be showing that video, and she's going to be telling us all about that. Everything right? And Nicola Steele, and just Lara Peachy is a veterinary parasitologist and a researcher specializing in equine parasite control, sustainability, worming, and evidence-based health management. Laura has sent us obviously a great presentation, which video you see later. Also, Nicola Steele, we've known for years from the Fernaway Equine Clinic, and has a strong interest in internal medicine and parasite management, including undertaking a PhD at the University of Liverpool focused on equine parasitology. I'll get it right in a minute, and sustainable worm control. So that was a mouthful and a half. So yes, don't go anywhere. We have got some of the world's leading experts talking about worming and how important. And remember, I know this is a subject I know nothing or very little about. So I'm going to learn a lot from these guys. From Stallion AI side, we've got Ollie behind, who's sorting everything else out. We've got Emma answering the question. We've got Sarah behind the camera today. We've lost India. But we're going to give away. We've got a giveaway worth approximately £500. A free foaling kit. And I have to admit, I didn't sign off on this one, but there's a chilled AI package. Or is that Edwards, is it? Oh, it's Edwards. Oh, right. I thought it was mine. But Edwards giving everything away tonight. So thank you, Edwards, for that. So basically, if you've got to be in it to win it at the end, and someone will get picked out, you get a free foaling kit and a free chilled AI package. Is that right?
Excellent. Yeah.
Fantastic. So what's on tonight? I think it's pretty much says it what's on the tin. We've got parasite control, resistance is increasing. We can explain the latest CANTER guidelines. It's very new to me. I'd love to learn all about this as well. The importance of paddock management, which I think Edward will go into great detail about. Egg count as well, and making the most of the experts. We've got amazing lineups. Get those questions coming in. Anyway, as you always know, we try and raise money for the charity that we run, Saving Species Going Extinct, by cryopreserving their tissue down. And all this technology has come, yes, from all the horses at the end of the day, the equine industry. So please, and also if you're thinking about jumping out of a plane, you know, we can raise money for Nature Safe, wait till the end, and hopefully we can get you doing that. Edward is going to give you an overview, obviously a Twemlow's talk as well, about everything that goes on here. I mean, this is obviously one of the largest AI centres. It's been going, I don't know how many years it's been going. That must be.
Well, you were doing it before me, about 30 years.
Yes, at least, I think, even more than that. So, and really showing what's been going on. As you know, when you've seen this, you've been going behind the scenes, seeing embryo transfer, fresh and chilled AI, but we're doing a different take on it too. We're looking behind the scenes, what goes on in this paddocks. If you don't get this bit right, the other bit won't follow on as well. So you're not going to have these lovely foals. So it's really important right the way through in this side of things. So basically, yes, Rebecca, your idea, Edward. Yeah, talk to us about why is it so important? And it's been on the news a lot. You know, you hear of some really tragic stories of horses passing away through worming and things like that. And I know we always think it's going to be the other people. It's not going to be us. And I think that's sometimes the misconception. So I think tonight it's going to be great to hear from you. Why is it so important?
Yeah, I think that's the big thing that we wanted to come on tonight, because I think a lot of our clients or a lot of other people, it was us for sure. I know that 4 or 5 years ago, I was in the dark about not knowing, thinking that, you know, we had a really good protocol. We've got 4 vets on site. We worm regularly. Surely we're not going to see any disease from parasites. And we did start to see that the young stock just weren't thriving like they should. And we did start to see abnormal bloods. And then when we dug deeper, and Edward will tell more about this, then we realized that, oh, actually, you know, something's not right here and we need to take a closer look. And then we heard from our clients as well that also, and every year now we're getting more and more people that, same as us, thought everything was perfect, no problems, until suddenly it's too late.
Thank you. Yes. Just and I say welcome very much to Twemlow's, and I know hopefully it's got a lot of animal dressage people are watching, and we're surrounded. You're one mare here, another mare behind us, another one there. So we've some of these foals here. Thank you, Martin. I think hopefully you're watching. So super to have them around us. Yes, but as Rebecca said, what? Yes. Yes. Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah. Thank you to Animal. They're all theirs, but I know they're keen about listening tonight. But you know, why are we standing in the field tonight? How has this all come about? And as Rebecca said, you know, we've seen over the last 2 or 3 years the difficulties with young stock not always thriving, not doing so well, you know, worming resistance. We've had clients talking to us. We hear stories throughout the country that people have lost young stock. So we very much had to take this forward and go with it, and look at our systems and do research on it. And very much, you know, Monica, our senior vet here, who's supported by Rebecca, and Rebecca has very much taken on the mantle of looking into all of this. And where we've gone in the last 2 years, first of all, we've been looking at what we're doing here, talking to very much Rossdale's. Emily Floyd at Rossdale's very much supported us about the work they've done there, all the stud farms they're doing. And then for the last 12 months, we've actually taken on, and she's joining us later on tonight, or hopefully, is Dr. Laura Peachy, who is a veterinarian parasitologist. Hello, Mayor. So she has been consulting with us and supporting Rebecca and our team here at Twemlow's for the last 12 months to how we can learn and improve what we do here and change our systems. So that's very much sort of how much it's...
go over those things tonight, all the things that Laura's helped us with. Yeah.
So it's adapting and changing and doing that. And I'm going to talk, you know, a lot more about the pasture management, but it's why it's come around over the last, as I said, few years. And you as our clients and our support, what support you've given us, have been asking us, we'd like to send you home with how you worm your foal going forward, but those sort of things have all changed. Right, so that's a bit of background why we're all here. Is there anything before?
Great. Yeah. So I think we've got a first poll question coming up. Is that right?
Yeah.
Now, so do you currently, I better speak near the mic.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. Do you currently carry out any fetal counts on your foals or young stock? So there's a yes, routinely. Next one is occasionally. Next one is only if there's a problem. No, I would like more information. So those are your 3 choices. So And any questions that come in, or anybody is where they're from yet, or is that the chat side of Emma? Oh, we had who was the people that you were saying, Sarah, that just would log on from Spain or somewhere, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, we've got loads of international support actually. New Zealand, and we've got Sarah Elliott and Novella Stud. We've got also Maria Kozlowski from Finland. We've got people in Italy, Francesco and Julia. So we've got a real good international scholars on.
I was going to say, hopefully a few people in the UK as well, wouldn't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
But Edward, tonight we're going to really start with you and sort of the practical changes that obviously you do here at Twemlow's Stud Farm, and yeah, be all interesting about your paddock management.
Thank you. Yes, it's something that our paddock management, how we've organised that, our barn management, which we'll go through. So as you can see here, we've got some good grass, and it's how they always say that your grass is your cheapest feed. So just how do we manage things? And I think it's all in scale. You know, okay, we've got quite a lot of acres here and a lot of horses, but many of you at home will have less ground, just fewer horses, but it's all relative on a smaller scale. So, you know, and I rather look about how do we go about our sort of system here at Twemlow's. And it really starts in about August, September, when I look at what reseeding and overseeding we're going to do for the following year. So in August time, if you want to reseed a paddock, it's the time of year to do it. You spray the paddock off, you plow it, you reseed it. And that can cost you, being realistic, £150 an acre to do that. But by the next spring, you will have a super clean paddock. You know, grass seed alone is about £80 an acre. So you've got to think of that. But the thing we do quite a lot here is we do overseeding, because when you reseed a paddock, you sort of lose the use of that paddock for maybe 6 months or quite a long time while it grows back. But when you overseed, what we have here is in the September time is when paddocks, we will choose a few paddocks that are really eaten down, very little grass on, and at the end of September, end of August, early September, we will go in with a machine and we will direct drill seed straight into the grassland. And that you're putting fresh grass in, and then that will hopefully grow over the winter. So that's overseeding, because you've got to think of your grass, that the amount you get, the yield from a grass does depreciate, it does drop each year by a small amount. So you want to try and have, you know, fresh grass coming through. So that's the overseeding. Then we go into the winter, and something that's been pushed on me, quite rightly by Rebecca, is sheep. You know, and it will be talked about a bit more. But, you know, breaking the life cycle with the worms and having an effect when you've got a lot of horses, if you can graze the land with sheep, it can have a big effect. And it's something that has been really pushed on us and very important to do. So what we do, we're lucky we're quite close to Wales, we can get sheep in over the winter. So from about sort of November time, we will get sheep come here and we will graze off all the fields, and the sheep will be here probably until end of January, early February. So sheep are a key factor if you've got them to do that. Then other factors then, when we go into December, end of November, we will also spread our muck. You know, we've all got a muck, but we actually compost all our muck here, break it all down, compost the muck from what we have, and it's all broken down. So we spread that. Then we move into sort of January and February, where we might spread some more muck. But when we get really into later on in February, we go harrowing. We harrow all the paddocks. Always a good thing to do. And also we have a seeder on there. So if there's any lighter areas, we can put some seed. But doing the harrowing of your paddocks in February, then we will be rolling the paddocks in sort of end of February, March time. So this is our sort of our cycle. Then also we will do some aerating. You know, we don't do a lot of aerating here, but if you've got heavier land and it's quite compacted, aerating can help. And then we also will apply some, when we get into where we're into March, April now, we'll be putting some artificial fertilizer on, usually at the end of March. We'll put on 1 dose then, and we usually spread it over a couple of weeks because you get more effect if you can split your applications of fertilizer. And then what we also, when you get into April and you start getting some growth, your weed management, it's always a crucial thing. So we probably have to spray 1/3 of the farm every year, and you think, oh, I sprayed these fields and they still grow weeds. But I'm afraid you get weeds that come back annually. So weed control, very important. We obviously come with a big sprayer, but we have with our paddocks here, we have our nursery paddocks, we have our individual paddocks for mares that are in work and need those paddocks, and the nursery paddocks for foal. So we would spray them with a knapsack sprayer. So you might have smaller paddocks at home. So I think doing spot spraying and knapsack spraying is very crucial. So that's in sort of April time, getting on top of all the weeds. And then we're starting to turn mares and foals and start turning horses out in April. So the ground is beginning to be grazed. And then when we get into May, that some of the paddocks will be grazed and they will need sweeping. And we have a paddock sweeper. Now, nothing beats removing, as there's two things, sheep and removing all the dung from the paddocks is really a key factor on the worming. And because of our size here, and we'll see it shortly, we have a paddock sweeper, but also Nikki, our stud manager, she will have the teams going, the nursery paddocks and all the individual paddocks, they will be hand-picked, or they'll go out with a wheelbarrow and clear those on a daily basis to keep those paddocks clear, because dung removal, as I know we hear about, is really crucial. So we've got that. And then as the season goes on, we're rotating our horses around the paddocks, the mare and foal fields, the fields with the single mares in. As they rotate round, as a paddock is rested, it is usually harrowed and then it is swept to remove as much dung as we can. So that goes on right through to August. So that sort of covers.
I think the biggest thing, what I wanted people to know as well, that we're definitely not perfect. And it would be really interesting if Tim or Diane had any kind of insight into, oh, something that you're doing there is really bad. We're very open to always trying to improve, but we're definitely not perfect. Ideally, my dream is that Edward has people all day long picking up poo all over the farm, and the sweeping just is not going to pick up all of that contamination from the feces that is going to cause worming to be an issue. So we have to think of the longevity of our farm. So I get different types of clients. We get clients that say, oh, well, my vet said to worm, you know, or someone told me to worm every month and then it'll be okay. And maybe that is true, but what's the longevity of that? How long will your farm last if you keep using wormers continuously? So that's where the point that Edward and I are at, where we're trying to get to the level where we're reducing the contamination, so we're worming less, but we're still fall into the high risk category on the CANTER guidelines, which means that we are worming more than someone. And I do have clients like this that ring me and say, I have 2 mares and foals and they live in huge acreage of land and feces is picked up every single day and they're never mixed with older horses that could put them at risk. So then they don't need to worm nearly half as much as what we do. So everyone falls into different categories, and Diane's going to talk about that more later. But definitely the sweeping is good, but Edward knows it's not perfect, and what we would like is some sort of commercial sucking machine to be brought out where it would just go around and suck all the feces up every day. So that's the dream, but we have to have things on the wish list all the time.
And Tim or Diane, Tim, have you got anything to add to that? What Edward and Rebecca were talking about on the paddock management side?
No, I think you're absolutely right. The pasture management is so vital in terms of trying to control the parasites, and picking up the feces has got to be the #1 aim. I appreciate it's not practical and not easy to do on big studs, but trying to remove the eggs and the larvae from the pasture is the #1 aim.
Close connection. Okay. Tim, your connection's not brilliant. We're just freezing up a little bit there.
Okay, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Diane, can you hear us?
So yes, I can. I was just on mute for a minute. So yes, I can. So obviously agree with everything Tim has just said. Sheep are also nature's vacuum cleaners at the end of the day. You know, they hoover around, they hoover up all the worms. So, and goats are good as well. So sheep or goats are equally as good.
You might like some goats.
And I think the thing is about the dung collecting is that, you know, in an ideal world, you would have a fleet of barrows, a fleet of staff with barrows picking up the poo every day. But it's not practical in the real world, and it's getting the balance It's one thing we are going to cover later. It's getting that balance between what pasture management changes can you make, because just worming and just egg counting is not going to cut it. It's like you've got to support it with some pasture changes, and even just one thing. My big thing is just one thing. Everybody can make one change, and what can it be? So yeah.
No, thank you for that. And question?
Yeah. So Mandy's asked, I've heard that the application of lime alters the pH and makes it harder for the parasites to survive. Is there any truth in this?
Yeah, well, I'm not an agronomist, but actually we do soil testing. I'll read back the question. Basically, somebody's asked about pH in soil, and does that have an effect on the worms? And it will affect grass growth, but the pH of soil, we do get the farm tested every sort of 3 years here. We would do pH tests on the soil, and if your pH level is not right, your grass growth won't be as good. I cannot comment about what it affects the worms, but adding lime will bring your pH levels to where they should be. So it is, a good point about, getting soil management is another area, but it's all part of paddock management that needs considering.
No, thank you.
It is. And sorry, can I just interject there for a minute?
Yeah, we'll answer the poll questions. So 66% say yes, they routinely do fecal egg counts on their foals. 9% say occasionally. Another 9% say only if there's a problem, and 14% say no, but I would like more information.
And we've had a few people from America and all sorts.
Yeah, so we've got Claire Hester, usually from Gloucestershire, but is currently watching from Long Island, USA.
Hopefully with a nice drink in your hand.
Hopefully.
It'll be early in the morning, maybe over there. But yeah, and somebody from Scotland and places, and there were loads.
Scotland, Wales.
Wow. Yeah, brilliant. Well, thank you for that on that side of things. So, all right. You want to go and have a look at your?
Just have a quick look at.
One question I was going to ask, Tim, if you can, or Diane. Obviously, Edward's on a very big scale, and not many people are on that sort of scale. For the small holder and the paddocks and the one horse livery yard, I presume obviously their side of things is more, again, picking up the poo, and obviously they're not going to have all these big bits of equipment, but picking up the poo and doing that side of it is absolutely paramount, I presume. But a lot of people watching have got more small holdings and sort of obviously a lot bigger areas. So have we got any advice for those people?
I think where pasture management is concerned, it all comes down to looking at your individual situation. And it's still, the core is still don't collect as much as you can, run sheep through if you can, rotate and rest. It's the same principles, just on a different scale. And it's just implementing whatever you can in your situation.
Right. Okay. No, brilliant. Definitely. Because I think we might come on to that later, because there'll be a lot of people with small holdings and stuff like that. Sorry, Edward, you were going to go on your.
Well, I'm just going to show some of our equipment, which assists us what I would call with our paddock management. And these are our grass harrows, which are used throughout the summer and do all the work at the beginning of the season. We've got our roller. We'd roll all our paddocks here in, as I said, in March time. Then the next machine up, if we're not going to look, is the aerator, and then the aerator there, and then the top, we can go walk up there, and we've still got signal. So this is the roller. And what I wanted to just show you is,
Edward, lost connection. Have to come back this way.
You've lost me. Okay. Can you do it from a distance? See, and here is our paddock sweeper. I know the connection has dropped off a bit. This is our paddock sweeper. It has harrows in front, and it has the sweeper and the bin. So this is really one of our key bits of equipment, is sweeping the paddocks. And some of you at home will have suckers that go behind a quad bike or doing that. So that is an option as well. So looking at that. Right.
Brilliant. Right. Well, I think we're going to try and do an Annika Rice challenge now. Oh no, I tell you what we have got next. We have got one more poll question before we jump in the car and get to the next place. Would you be interested in a tailored worming and parasite management plan for your young stud and young stock? yes, definitely, possibly, I would like some more information. I already work with a vet or a laboratory. No, thank you. So that'd be really good on that side. So if we can fill out the poll question. I think now we're heading off. Is that right, Rebecca? And so, yeah, so Laura is unable to join us tonight, but kindly sent us over a presentation that we're going to play while we hot-footed, get in the cars and drive back to one of Edward's barns. So Ollie, if you can play that. We did have a slight issues with the sound, so you might have to turn your sound up, but I think we sorted it out this afternoon. So if you can play that video, Edward, Ollie, that'll be fantastic.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Laura Peachy. I am an Associate Professor in Parasitology at the University of Bristol Vet School. And I've been working with Twemlows over the last few months to support them in understanding their parasite problems in more detail, and also coming up with strategies to try and improve the situation and prevent animals from becoming unwell due to parasitic disease. So we've managed to look at the whole system and how animals managed, when they're coming in and where they're going, and the young animals in particular, how they're being managed. And we've made a few changes and started doing a lot more testing. The stud has been really engaged and on board with this process, which has been fantastic. We've made a few changes, and I'm sure that the team are going to explain these to you in more detail. So we've looked at the sort of housing systems over the winter, and the hygiene and the litter system over the winter, because there is some anecdotal evidence that that there can be transmission of parasites over the winter in barns, and therefore improving and increasing the frequency of cleaning can, we hope, will be beneficial. And treating the animals before they go in, so that they don't go in with a parasite burden which will then transmit over their winter. We've also been looking at drug efficacy, so doing testing for resistance, lots and lots of testing, which I'm sure you'll hear more about in later in the webinar. And also, I know that Edward and the team have been making great strides towards management changes, so pasture management and co-grazing systems, in order to try and reduce the transmission of parasites on the farm. All in all, things are going well so far, and I'm sure that Rebecca will tell you more about everything that she's been doing and the hard work that they've been putting into resolving some parasite control issues, which I know that many studs are facing at the moment. So I'm also working with a great group of people at an organisation called CANTER. It's everyone who works with CANTER is a voluntary. They're on a voluntary basis. We're all experts in parasitology in some way. And we've developed some guidelines to help people to try and control parasites in young animals in particular, especially when there are concerns about drugs not working as well as they should and efficacy issues. So I know that you're going to hear a lot more about these this evening. They're quite complicated, I will warn you, but you're not supposed to just pick them up and be able to understand what you do. These needs to be used in collaboration with your vets or your prescribers, in order to come up with the right plan for your stud. So every stud will be different, or every premises will be different, and can apply these principles in the best way possible. And we hope that they make sense to you in this regard, and that they will be a helpful resource for people moving forward. I wanted to just mention that we do have a study running at the University of Bristol at the moment, which involves looking in particular at redworms, and we're now also starting to do some work looking at tapeworms, looking at drug resistance, and trying to understand on each farm better how the drugs are working and what might be going wrong, so that we can help to improve the use of anthelmintics to try and control parasites as best we can for as long as we can into the future. And so if anyone's interested in getting involved, if you have any concerns about your stud farm and any animals that might be suffering from disease due to parasites, then please get in touch, or ask Rebecca to put you in touch with me. And likewise, and in general, I'm here to offer support to the industry to try and improve parasite control, especially in these difficult times where we know that the drugs that we have sadly aren't working as well as they used to. So I just overall just really hope everyone enjoys this seminar. I know that Twemlow's have been doing a huge amount of work and are really, really zoned in and focused on this now. So you're going to hear some really interesting stuff, and look forward to hearing the feedback. Thank you very much for your time.
Good. Right. Well, we've now moved to one of Edward's barns, and I think, so I'll let you explain what you're doing here.
So obviously, the mares and foals are out in the field for 2/3 or a large part of the year, but we, because of our paddocks, we cannot have horses out all year round. Otherwise, we wouldn't have any grass. We need to rest our paddocks. We need the sheep to be there as well. So we've got to do that. So for probably 1/3 of the year, from sort of November, December time, right up through to April, we have horses in barns, and that's all the mares, the pregnant mares, the yearlings, the weanlings, and all of that. So how do we keep them in barns? And we have various different barns, but it's the straw and the system we do. And I have to say, going back several years ago, we often had quite a lot of deep litter straw, and we had the young stock or mares and foals, or just single mares in these pens, and we wouldn't muck them out on that regular basis until it got deep. But in the last year, pushed on by Rebecca and the work and the support of Laura Peachy and Rossdales and things, that we've been basically cleaning out our barns. Ideally, Rebecca would like them done weekly. I just think the price of straw and the economics, but we've probably been doing it every 2 weeks, and we would just take all the horses out, take all the straw out, and put fresh in. And I found over doing that, we haven't actually used that much more straw, but it has meant that we're keeping the beds cleaner, the worms from that side of view. So it has been quite a sort of fundamental change, but it has generally worked. I don't know, Rebecca, how do you want to add?
A big eye-opening thing for me when Laura came in to help us, and what I wanted to raise awareness about, was Monica and I weren't concerned about, in the winter, we didn't think there would be transmission of worms with our adult horses and our young stock. And actually Laura said, well, it's something that there's still a lot of work going into, and Diane and Tim might add something, but that we do think that there is a level of transmission there. So the more regular cleaning, we have seen a huge improvement, especially in our young stock. The other thing that Laura brought to my attention that I hadn't thought about was what we tend to do is all the horses are out until November, and then we have to do a routine blanket treatment with moxidectin for the encysted larvae that we can't test in the fecal egg counts for all of our horses here. So we are in the high risk category. And what we try to do now is we try to do those treatments in batches before they come in, and we try to do reduction tests on them before they come into the pens. So then hopefully they're in pens with other horses that have had their worming done and aren't going to keep infecting themselves throughout the winter in the pen. So that's a big change that we made. I think it's been really helped, and it's been a really great change. So thanks to Laura for that one.
Very good.
Yeah.
So I think that covers everything inside.
Yeah.
Right. So where are we heading off to now, Thomas?
Diane, I think you're going to share your screen now.
I am, yes.
And so if you're all right to do that, and then we're going to head over, and then there's a mass of questions that have flooded in. So Tim, be prepared for Nicola and everybody for a load of questions, because this is going to be the interesting bit, all the questions we're going to ask. So yes, if you can do your presentation, and we're going to move.
Okay, well, I'm hoping everyone can see this now, and I'm hoping everyone can hear me as well. So let me know if there's any problems. I'm obviously already been introduced. You know who I am. Tim's here to help me as the co-author for the CANTER Young Stock Guidelines. And we just really want to walk through what those guidelines actually mean for your stud, and sort of how to implement them and what to do with them. Oh, I'm just having a problem moving my slide on. There we go. So what are they? They're the first national cross-sector guidelines for sustainable parasite control in horses. And what that actually means is that it's very difficult, or historically it's been very difficult, to get everyone working in parasitology together to develop a set of guidelines that provide a framework for everyone to follow who hasn't got our level of expertise in parasitology. And that's what the guidelines are. They've basically brought together all of the experts in parasitology not just in the UK, but abroad as well. They've been written for prescribers and vets to provide an evidence-based framework so that they can base their parasite management decisions on that. And chapter 11 is the one that's most relevant tonight because it's the one that covers foals, weanlings, yearlings and young stock. And it's also the one that took the longest to write. And the reason for that is because when we started, our objective was to provide a single framework. But the more we got discussing it, there isn't a single framework because there's so many different situations. As Edward said earlier, there's sort of big stud farms like Twemlow's, and then there's sort of small owner breeders. And the guidelines had to cover everybody. They had to cover people with high risk pasture, people who don't collect every day, and take absolutely everything into account. And so instead of a prescriptive recipe, for want of a better word, they're a framework to help prescribers carry out a risk assessment and then take the appropriate decisions. But from a stud breeder's point of view, that kind of makes it more complicated as well, because it doesn't give you a list that you can follow that says if you do A, B, C, and D, then everything's going to be all right. That's not what they are, because that's not how worming and young stock and studs work. It's a bit more complex than that, because foals are born with no natural immunity whatsoever. Their system has to learn to cope with each species from scratch, and they're exposed to a number of different worm species as they age in their first year. So it's starting off with Strongyloids styri, then it's ascarids, then cyphostomes come into effect, and obviously tapeworm come in at the same time. So what you're doing, you have to target each different type of worm as you need to, and then use your risk assessment to decide, well, what do we do in the autumn? You know, we've got maybe ascarids tailing off, encysted small redworm possibly to worry about. We've got tapeworm raising its head, and one Equus pramox doesn't do the job. So what do you do? And this is where the guidelines help your prescriber to support you with that. Now, next. The unfortunate situation today is that horses on UK studs are dying from parasites, and particularly youngsters. We've just put some examples here as to why that might be happening. It's not because people don't take this seriously. Everyone takes this seriously, but everyone also thinks what they're doing is working until there's a problem. And the thing with worms is that they build up gradually over time. They build up in the pasture and they build up in the horses. And while they're building up, there's no outside, there's nothing to see to show that anything's wrong until there isn't. So you need to get ahead of the game. You need to get out of the grey, because when you work, I always say that there's black and white in worming, and then there's a lot of grey. And the grey is what you assume. You assume that because you can't see anything wrong, then nothing's wrong. You assume that because you have a clear egg count, you haven't got resistance. These are all assumptions and working in the grey. There's black and white. You don't give a 3-month foal an Equus pramox. But again, do you give a weanling? When do you give it? Which ones have what gap do you leave between it? There's so many different questions that need answers, and people want prescriptive answers. I'm sure everyone listening here wants me to give you an ABC guide to how to get rid of worms, and I can't, because there isn't one. That it's all in looking at the risk of what's going on and looking at what's happening individually. And that's what Laura's been doing with Tremlow's through the testing and management changes. She's been working with them specifically at the specific challenges that they have, and then reducing the grey. So any assumptions that were there, she's replacing with fact. And once you've got the facts, then you can do the right thing. So CANTER is a decision framework. It's not a recipe. And sometimes I think the reason we're looking for the recipe, and I might be wrong with this, is that it all originates back from the Equest year pack, where if you gave moxidectin 4 times a year, 2 green, 2 blue, then they said there was no resistance, it was 50 quid a year, and resistance wouldn't develop. And at that time, over 80% of all wormer purchases were the Equest year pack. And it was brilliant. You only had to worm 4 times a year. It was cheap. They said there was no resistance, but they were wrong. And I sometimes think that today, everyone's still looking for that Equest year pack of today. So give us something, guarantee there's no resistance, and we want to pay 50 quid, and it's sorted. And I hate to say it, but that's not going to happen. I'm a bubble burster. That's not happening. There's parasites in the pasture. There's resistance to all the worms. Every horse is born with no natural immunity, and then it develops natural immunity over its life cycle. But how quickly does it develop that natural immunity? What level of larvae does it pick up from the pasture? How long are the wormers effective for? When do you need to use them? These are all questions that the answers are different for everyone on this call. And where CANTER comes in is it provides a decision framework for your parasite manager, your parasite advisor, to be able to help you with that. And to be able to, again, reduce the grey. Let's not make assumptions and find out what's going on for definite. So every decision has so many different permeations. So you get an egg count result. What do you do with it? Have you got scarred eggs? Have you got strong gall eggs? Is there tapeworm in there? Are you testing for reduced efficacy? How long ago is it since you wormed? Are there new horses coming in? If it's clear, yay. Does that mean I don't have to worm? For some of you, yes. For others, no. But how do you know who is who? And that's where the CANTER guidelines sort of again come into play. And that's why, as much as everybody wants this out of the box solution, you need to be thinking about who is your parasite manager, who is your parasite advisor, who's doing the risk assessment for you, because somebody has to. You know, we moving forward, your horse health team will include your vet, your farrier, and your parasite advisor, because everyone's different. Every pasture is different. I'm talking a pasture and where we've been before. Testing and worming on its own will not get rid of parasites, just won't happen. All that will do is you'll basically keep a lid on it to stop any clinical diseases, hopefully, maybe not, depending what's going on, because we're working in the grey here. We don't know what's going on. Can we poop it? Can we rest and rotate? Can we graze with sheep? Can we do some seasonal resting? Dung spreading, muck spreading? You know, technically it's a no-no, but does it have to happen? Harrowing with caution. There's so many different things on top of this. There's like a 3-page list of things that you can do. And if everyone can only pick one, then the situation is going to be better. If you can pick 2 or 3, even more better. Sorry, that's really bad English. But just relying on testing and worming is like playing Russian roulette. It's like for some people it will work and for some people it won't. But unless you know and you don't assume, you don't know if that's going to be you or not. Everyone here can carry out a management audit and assess where they sit in the high, medium and low as far as their pasture is concerned. It's something you don't need anyone else to do. You can do it yourself. And then just see, is there anything you can do to help improve your parasite management or your parasite risk? And this just sort of shows why you need somebody to help you with this. You might not, you might spend years looking at everything you can possibly find on the internet, and well done if you have. But it always starts with a risk assessment. Everything starts with your history, your pasture management, your treatments, your animal movements, what clinical conditions you've had previously, what's your rotation of horses? Do you board mares? You know, do they go away to foal? All of that kind of stuff builds up a parasite profile. And that's the first thing before you decide whether to test or treat. And then that needs to take age-specific programs into account, because sometimes in a foal's life, we worm regardless of egg count results. It's dangerous when we're looking at ascarids to rely on worm egg count results. And that's when we look onto the clinical interpretation of your results. It's a data point. A worm egg count result is a data point. It's not an answer. You know, it's you're looking at, oh, we've all got clears, we don't need to worm. That's not the case where young stock and foals are concerned. And then your ongoing management. Look at your trend analysis. You will actually be able to see which pasture is contaminated. Have you got tapeworm issues? Have you got small redworm issues? You can actually see all of this come out in your trend management and your pasture rotation. But somebody has to do all of this for you. And like I say, you do it yourself, but you have to know what you're doing, because otherwise you're still wallowing in the grey. You're still making assumptions. So research, Laura's already talked about her research. It's really, really important research. So if there's anyone on the call who can help Laura by providing dung samples or registering their stud with her, please reach out, because that research is going to help us to understand what species are driving resistance, and we can adapt our management before the drugs fail. We've got a data set that we've created over 25 years. There's 10,000 horses in it, and it's the largest independent data set of parasite management in the UK. In that data set, there's no cases of new resistance in the horses that are under the management of that data set. And the reason is it's not magic. There's no magic wand or anything here. It's systematically applying the rules and minimizing the grey, that we make no assumptions. We find out everything for a fact. We just wanted to share some of our knowledge. There's a risk assessment for studs and foals on the website. If you want to carry one out yourself to see where you sit, just go to the website and download it, and it's free. There's no, just go and help yourselves to that. Key messages: resistance is real. All right, it's not happening to someone else. It's not happening down the road. It's happening to everyone worldwide. Doesn't matter where you are in the world, you've got to worry about resistance. The CANTER guidelines are a framework, not a recipe. They require risk assessment and clinical interpretation. And young stock are born with no natural immunity. So you have to think about what level of challenge there is in the pasture when you turn them out. Is it going to overwhelm them? Is it something that they can build up gradually? Do they need wormers to help them? Again, the decisions you make when they're foals compound as they grow. Pasture management is your first line of defence. It reduces drug reliance and it protects the treatments we've got. And think about who's your parasite manager, who navigates the complexity so you don't have to guess. It can be a knowledgeable SQP, it can be your vet, it can be a parasite specialist. There's a few people out there who can help you. Oh, and that's it. I'm all done. So I don't know how to unshare my screen, so bear with me while I try and figure that out. Technical difficulties, sorry guys.
Great. Thank you very much, Diane. That was incredible. A really amazing insight into that work you're doing. So thank you so much for that.
There we go.
Right, we're ready to go. I'm sorry for anybody who actually saw my legs basically before when traveling in the car. Apparently we didn't switch the screen off, so I hope that doesn't give you nightmares tonight. I haven't shaved them recently. But anyway, we're coming into the stocks. Some of you on previous webinars must recognise where we are. This is where all the mares are scanned, and the journey really starts really for the breeding side of things. So Rebecca is going to explain a bit about, Twemlow's worming test overview. How often do you worm them and times of the year and things like that. So yeah, the floor is yours, Rebecca.
Thank you, Phyllis. So we used to at Twemlow's, really interesting, send home a sheet of paper to all our clients saying, here's your foal, this is what you should do. And it was basically to alternate between a fenbendazole wormer from 2 months of age, and then every month to alternate between a pyrantel and a fenbendazole until they were 5 months of age. So it's not that we're not doing that anymore, and we're not handing that out anymore, is one thing I would say. And when people ask me, oh, what should I worm with, I say, here's the basic plan to start off with, which is that, just hold it up here, we do recommend treating per the CANTER guidelines with a fenbendazole wormer because we're mainly worried about aspirates at this stage, and it's too early to use a fecal egg count. So a fecal egg count at 2 months of age is just not reliable. So that's one thing that I do say to people. Following on from that, at Twemlow's, what we are now doing is we're still potentially alternating every month between fenbendazole and pyrantel, but we are testing now. So we're doing fecal egg counts. So from 3 months of age, we're doing fecal egg counts every month. And what we are doing is we don't necessarily have a concrete plan. We're adapting based off all the data that we're collecting and all the fecal egg counts that we're doing. And I'm using my CANTER guidelines, which they are complicated for someone, you know, for Edward to manage and look at it himself. I don't expect Edward to do it, but I'm able to gather the data, look at the results, and then make our plan for what we're going to do next. So that's how we use them. And I have printed out this. So this is the CANTER guidelines. So our clients know that we fall into this high risk category. So we'll have one choices that will follow per the CANTER guidelines, but all our other clients might have different guidelines. So that's why I'm definitely not recommending that anyone goes, oh, that's what Rebecca does, I'm going to copy that. So what we're doing is we're doing 5-fenbendazole wormer, really important for aspirates at 2 months and 4 months. And then we are doing regular fecal egg counts every month from 3 months. And we keep that going until they're at least 3 years of age. We're doing fecal egg counts every 2 months. And we're worming them potentially every 2 months with a pyrantel. And very important to think about in the winter time, or encysted larvae, which Alex is going to show with our fecal egg counts. We unfortunately can't detect the levels very easily of encysted larvae in the gut, and they do cause a lot of problems with young stock. So Twemlow's, we are blanket treating in the winter with a moxidectin wormer combined with reduction tests. And when I talk about all the other wormers, how we're doing every 2 months, so what wormers will I give? It depends on what my reduction tests are telling me. So it's one thing that Laura's brought into us is we can't just worm and think, oh, we've wormed, everything's fine. We must continuously on our farm be checking that those worms are actually working with reduction tests. And that's one really important thing to speak to your vet about. Have you done those, and how do they work, and how do you go about doing that? Another thing, if we can just go in on my computer, maybe on this screen, you'll see that Laura has helped me devise this kind of massive Excel spreadsheet where every time I'm doing testing, I am implementing it in here. And the hope is that in years to come, I'll be able to track on the farm, you know, when I'm saying we're doing these fecal egg counts every month or every 2 months with our young stock, we'll be able to track the trends and our reductions and see the trends on the farm and how those things are working. So that's the idea with that. Another thing that I just wanted to highlight is a lot of our clients think that I'm filling in a worming questionnaire now at Twemlow's, because I do want to know about what your horse has had and what the follow-up plan for your horse's worming is. But a lot of it is that I want to try and protect the longevity of our farm. So I want to know what's going out in our pasture. So we are trying as hard as we can to isolate horses when they arrive until we know the status of their worm. So we do a fecal egg count when they come, but we know that with tapeworm, we can't see the tapeworm in the fecal egg count. So we need to know from clients when they last worm for tapeworm, or have they done a blood test or a saliva test to detect tapeworm in the last 6 months. And that's also the case for encysted redworm. So when is the last time they did do a test, or if they did worm for encysted redworm, so that we have an idea what is going out onto our pasture and protecting our pasture. So they're some of the really big things that we've brought in. I guess it's not that we've brought in more worming. We're probably doing similar amounts of worming that we used to, but we're doing much more regular fecal egg count checks, especially on our foals every month from 3 months of age. And when we get up to weanlings, 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, they're getting checked every 2 months. And blanket treating them isn't something I'm telling people that they need to do. It's something that you need to discuss with your vet or with your SQP, whether it's, you know, with your management on your farm, what you need to do.
Cool. Thank you, Rebecca.
Yeah.
And we're just saying, everyone said, if any of you want some of these, you can email them to them. Yeah. This one. Yeah. So We can, Rebecca, yeah, if anybody wants, just email Edward at Twumlows or Rebecca, and they can post them or email them out to you. That's all right. Right, Alex, we can't do any of this knowing how healthy or unhealthy a mare's, you could say, worm count is or how bad it is, without the work that you're doing. I'll just strap this in here so I don't have to hold it at the same time. So this is really going to tell us whether, I presume it's important to, carry out a worming regime or not. And you've been doing this for how long for now?
About 6 years now. Yeah, started in college. A way of making money, and then I sort of got obsessed with it.
I feel like that. You must be starting when you were at 12 then. I mean, crikey, we did that long. I couldn't believe when we were all having our pre-pizza beforehand for this. How many do you think you've done?
It must be thousands, probably 10,000 plus.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's not your first job that you've only just started. You've been doing it for quite some time. Honestly, that's incredible. I feel that it's obviously a passion of yours doing this. Can you just explain a little bit more about the process that you go through in doing this? So when a sample arrives with you, just talk us through how that's, how you go about the process.
Yeah, so basically there are two main types of worm egg count or fecal egg count. So the one we use the most is the McMaster, which is this little thing, and you basically, I've pre-mixed some here. You have 26 ml of this solution I make. It's sugar and salt, and I test it for its specific gravity. It has to be 1.25. And you go 26 ml, you fill the rest up to 30, and then you put it into this little thing here and mix it up. And then you get this, and you put it into the McMaster slide. And that is only a multiplication of times 25 once you read both sides for eggs per gram, which is good for blanket sort of scanning of the farm to know where and who's got the most worms, or the worm eggs, I should say. But
and then basically you get people ring up and when they're giving the sample, so they send them just in a tube or chilled, or is it just in
I've had it in all sorts. I've had it in gloves.
But you've got some good stories to tell, haven't you? We don't want to name and shame tonight.
No.
Send them in.
No, I won't name and shame, but we've had them in gloves, we have them in freezer bags. Best thing is a little tub, but
And how much do you need? Just a small amount?
Yeah, a really small amount. I've had people send in the whole thing, and it's a lot of thrown away from me. Yeah, you literally need just a few grams. I'd say to be safe, give me 10 grams. You don't need it, but because no one's going to actually weigh it. But
so I presume collecting it is important because you want to make sure it comes from that said animal.
Yeah, the fresher the better.
So the fresher the better. Yeah. So if they're in a paddock, you've got to be careful. You've got to see them actually.
Well, yes. If it sits out for too long, the eggs develop to larvae, and I can't count anything then. So
that's really good. That's again, I didn't realize that. So basically, you don't want to get an old sample that's we need to be 24 hours old or something. How?
Well, it depends on temperature.
Right. Like so many patches.
If it's really sunny, they're going to be a bit quicker than when it's freezing. But within a good couple hours would be great. 5 hours, something like that. But don't leave it days. That's definitely a no.
Right.
And they can live in the fridge for up to 3 days. So once you've got it in there, you
can fill it down.
Yeah. And then you just send them in, and I'll count them.
Yeah. And you make this process sound very simple, but I'm sure it's more complicated than that, Alex. So you're doing a bit of this and that. So basically, gone through this bit. What's the next side? So it's a bit like a hemocytometer, this, isn't it? It's a counting chamber, is it? Of some sort?
Yeah. So there's as you can see, there's 2 chambers here. Each side is about a 50th of a gram. I think we can see it.
It's a bit hard on them.
But just imagine 2 grids, and I'll count the eggs within those grids, and then we basically put it into that spreadsheet that Rebecca was talking about. And it's really helpful to know what worms are about. And the only downside to this is that it's not 100% accurate, because you've got to sort of spread it out between the whole poo has got different amounts between it. So if you're taking a sample, I would take a little bit from each part and mix it.
Really important. So if a horse has a poo on the floor, basically you want to get different amounts in that.
Yeah, so
rather than just one.
Not
bit.
just one big bit.
Right,
Go
gotcha.
mix it up a bit, and yeah. So if you send us that, that's the best.
That's interesting. So I bet a lot of people just literally grab a little bit on the outside and send it in, and that's not going to be a true representative. So that's, I have to say, something I learned tonight. I didn't even realise that. So different parts. So what, 3 different parts of the poo basically?
Yeah, well, as many as you can really. It doesn't really matter as long as it's all mixed together. I'll take a bit out of that, but then I don't have to worry about, you know, it not being mixed up. It's pre-mixed for me, but you know, it makes it easier and more reliable. Yeah, so it's pretty much only large strong gals and ascarids. I can't see cyathostomes or tapeworm is rare, very rare. I don't think I've ever seen one actually in those thousands of workouts that I've done. No, I don't think I have. So yeah, with that is a bit of a downside to it.
Every type of worm, so we can't just rely on the fecal evidence.
And do you, I mean, again, I don't want your name shape, but do you get some that you're thinking, oh my God, you've had one that's like off the scale? Sometimes you get in and you're thinking, holy moly, I need to give that client a ring.
Yeah, there's yeah, I've had a few where they've been really high, but it's not, you know, the end of the world as long as they're clinically fine. You don't have to, as if they're looking terrible and they have a high workout, then you've got to worry. But
and I don't know whether this is a vet or even a Tim question actually. Again, years ago, if a mare or a horse is really wormy and you give it, can they get, if they're really bad, can they get colicky signs or anything like that? Tim, is that, sorry, my naivety, but I thought I heard somewhere if they're really bad, can it make them passing these worms? Can it have an effect on them?
Yeah, absolutely. So heavy worm burden can, so the cyathostomes and all the tapeworms, with a heavy burden of those, they can get colic. Of course, with cyathostomes, the biggest risk is acute diarrhea and colitis. But with tapeworms, we get various types of colic. And tapeworms are difficult, as we said, to diagnose on a fecal count, which is why we use the saliva or blood test to look at antibodies to the tapeworms, because the fecal tests are not reliable enough.
Right. Okay. Thank you. And Alex, you know, we're not going to go through cost tonight, but I'm always amazed. This is more of a love rather than a passion, rather than something that you're going to buy your next holiday on straight away, isn't it? Because I know the work that goes into it and the real bit. So I really take my hat off to you, because it's a lot of work for a small reward, but it's, you know, it's obviously something you're very passionate about as well.
Yeah, you got to look at the bigger picture. I just enjoy it, and I've really enjoyed learning about parasitology, and I think one day, hopefully, I'll be doing that as a job.
Well, I think at the age you are, the amount you've done, I think you're well on that road to being an absolute amazing expert. You really are. So, is there anything else? So you basically look under the microscope. I see you got a little counter here.
So
is that right?
That's for right. There's so I've spoken about the McMaster slide, and this is a bit more of a. This one takes longer, and it's much more accurate. But this is the mini Flowtech, and basically it's the same sort of thing, but you put it in here, and it comes with its own little masher that you mash it up, and then you put them in there. You have to leave it for 10 minutes to settle. It's far longer, and there are far more eggs seen, and it's only a ×5 multiplication, so it's much more accurate. And we use that mainly for reduction tests, because
if you've got a sample that's really
so if we think, okay, right, I've seen a lot in the McMaster, I will take another sample for the Flowtech, get a more accurate number, worm the mare, foal, whatever, and then 2 weeks later do that again, and we can then do a reduction test and find out if we've got resistance to that worm.
And is there a time of year that you tend to get more samples in? Is it before the summer starts and before people turn them out, or is it generally pretty much all year round?
About springtime, I think, is when we hit the most coming in. Winter is a bit quieter, but yeah, it's more so when they're turning them out. I think it makes sense, because obviously they're then all mixing together, and you don't want to have.
What's the most you sort of done in a day?
200, I think.
Is it?
Yeah.
Wow. That's incredible, that is. So does Edward, you know, have to mix it between working with Edward and in the evening you're sort of doing it?
Yeah, I love it.
It's really good to, I just love it when people are so passionate about a certain project or a certain thing you're doing, because it really shows a passion. And as we've seen tonight, we've got so much more to go through. We've got a million questions to go through. The importance of it. So is there anything else that you want to sort of explain here that's before we head on back? Or
No, I think.
Yeah, but if anybody's interested, Alex is obviously can help out. You can get a hold of Alex. If you don't know Alex, always go through Edward here, contact them and send the poo samples in. Maybe me and you have got the world's weirdest jobs. You know, I look at semen all day, you look at poo all day. So I don't know who's a bit luckiest one of those two. But we're both passionate about what we do, and I think it's really important on that side. So thank you so much for Alex. It's incredible. I am blown away how many you've done. I really am, and it's something, you know, dedicated hard work, and I know you're going to do some more projects about it. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
Right, we're going to move next door. Before that, I want to introduce you to Nikki, who's going to give us a talk from Fernway. Is that right? Yeah, you've got Nikki. Are you there?
Yes, hi. Thank you so much, and thank you to Rebecca and Edward just for inviting me to come on. And I'm afraid this is a bit of a shameless plug, because Rebecca and Edward have been really kind in supporting me at the University of Liverpool in the work I'm doing there. There's a number of PhD projects that are currently ongoing, but I've been working closely with Rebecca and Edward. We're currently looking at one on ascarids, which are parasites that predominantly affect foals and young horses. And as Diane has already mentioned, there are lots of shades of grey in parasitology, and what we're trying to do is fill some of those knowledge gaps. So this is really for the audience that are in the UK who might be listening and involved in stud work. We're currently running a project which is looking at the prevalence of ascarids, which are the large round worms, the really big fat unattractive worms that you might see from your foals. And we're looking at the prevalence of infection on UK stud farms, and also the efficacy of the drugs that are licensed for use in the UK, because whilst there's a lot of knowledge from the rest of the world about what drugs are effective and what drugs aren't effective, there are big knowledge gaps in the UK. So we're currently working with studs like Twemlow's to gather that information, and it's all completely anonymous if you did want to be involved in that study, and we're getting stud farms to submit fecal samples and fill in questionnaires, and all of that information we're going to pull together to basically look at practices that potentially increase the risk of infection and practices that are potentially decreasing those risks of infection, so that we can try and provide the best guidance to studs going forward about how to manage worm control sustainably. And as I think sort of Diane's already sort of alluded to, there's a huge amount of other stuff apart from just using the chemical deworming drugs. The net is very wide on this project. We're looking at what people do in terms of their pasture management, and we're looking at, and also indoor management, particularly for ascarids, because there is evidence of a significant indoor transmission in ascarids as well. So we're looking at all of those things and pulling it together. So just a brief hello, and if anyone is interested in taking part in those areas of research, then obviously contact Edward, or I can put my email in the chat, and we would be really grateful if anyone who wanted to be involved was. And I can't take my hat off enough to Twemlow's about how proactive they're being and how open they are, and that's what I would encourage. You know, I think we are aware now that across the UK and the world, we are seeing more and more drug resistance. And I think the more that we understand what's going on, the closer we are to hopefully being able to improve the sustainability of the drugs that we do have that are still working. So, yeah, that was all I had to say about that, really.
So we've got a couple of questions here. At what age should foals...
Okay, we back? Yep, can you hopefully hear us okay? Right, we've got quite a lot of questions coming in. I'll just get one off here before Emma takes the floor on some of these. Tim, I mean, we hear a lot about the sort of seriousness of parasite resistance becoming into the UK horse population. How serious is that now?
I guess the answer is we don't really know in the UK specifically. As Nick said, in terms of ascarid resistance, we know in some parts of the world there is resistance growing in the ascarid population. We know in the UK, in the general horse population, there's a lot of resistance to the benzimidazole, which is the first class of anthelmintics that were introduced back in the 60s. So fenbendazole is the commonest used drug in that class, and there is widespread resistance in all general horses in the UK to fenbendazole. But we're really worried about growing resistance to the other class of drugs. That's the macrocyclic lactones, which includes moxidectin, because that's one of the only drugs that has a license to treat encysted larval stages of the sarcostomins, which are so dangerous in terms of causing serious disease in young horses. So there's ongoing work. We're worried about resistance growing in all of those classes of anthelmintics in the different parasites. There's also some growing concern about resistance among the tapeworms as well. It's difficult to actually measure resistance in tapeworms, but there is evidence again around the world of resistance growing, and this resistance is a global problem. It affects every country. So what happens here will be happening in all other countries as well.
Yeah, thank you for that, Tim. And you may have got off lightly for the first sort of half hour or 45 minutes, Tim, but I think a lot of these might be, I think we'll share the questions, but I think there's another one maybe for you. There's a client of ours that's asked a question: should she worm her 3-year-olds and under, regardless of egg count?
So young horses less than 4 or 5 years of age are particularly at risk of picking up heavy burdens of the small redworms, the sarcostomins, and they can develop and what we call encyst in the intestine. So they burrow into the wall of the intestine, and then they kind of undergo a sort of hibernation state, and they sit there, and the young horses can accumulate many thousands, if not millions, of these parasites in their intestine as they're grazing over the summer. And this is a particular problem, as I say, in young horses. And what can happen, unfortunately, is at some point, those encysted larvae will wake up and migrate back out of the intestine into the gut lumen, into the intestine itself. But they tend to migrate en masse, so thousands or millions of these larvae will then migrate out, and they cause serious damage to the intestinal lining, and that causes severe disease of the intestine, which causes diarrhea, weight loss, and frequently, unfortunately, death, because we don't have a very effective treatment for this disease once it hits. So this is why it's so important to try and control the parasites, especially in these young horses, to prevent them from building up masses of encysted larvae in the intestine, which will then potentially is a ticking time bomb for causing serious disease later on.
Thank you for that. The other thing is, I think Ollie, I don't know if you can steer us, but we've missed a poll question out. It's my fault, my bad. One poll question is poll question number 4. Have you ever had a youngster severely ill or die due to tapeworm burden?
Ascarid.
Thank you. I'll let you do these.
Ascarid burden, cystostomin burden, so that's redworm, or any other worming related problems. So we're just interested to know from the webinar tonight, has anyone actually had problems with these worms?
So yeah, thank you. Sorry to spring that upon you, Ollie. Has that come up, that one yet?
Yes.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you for that. Right, Emma, it's slightly over to you. So we've had.
I actually just asked Tim a follow-up question since we have him tonight. I have some burning questions myself. We do blanket treat, especially our yearlings and 2-year-olds. I worry about encysted larvae with that age group a lot on Twemlows, and we are treating them with moxidectin. And I do use the reduction tests. But if they don't have high counts, how do I know how effective my moxidectin is for my encysted larvae? And is always kind of one of those things that keeps me up at night. So I was just wondering if you had any advice.
I don't have a good answer for you, I'm afraid. I think we just don't really know. There's no specific test that we can do in the live animal to determine how many larvae are in the intestine. So we don't really know how effective the moxidectin treatment will be, or the 5 days of fenbendazole, which is the other drug that could potentially kill these encysted larvae. And it's a little bit of a controversial area because some sort of parasitologists around the world aren't overly convinced that these drugs are as effective as we think they are in actually killing the larvae. So again, I think sleepless nights is probably in order. But preventing them has got to be the way forward, preventing these horses from picking those larvae up in the first place. And this is where the worm egg counts and the risk assessments are so important. And just a quick note on the worm egg counts themselves. Worm egg counts are really the most useful thing of worm egg counts is to know which horses are contaminating the pasture and treat them to try and stop that contamination. It does not tell you how many worms the horse has got. So you could have a horse with a very low worm egg count that could still have lots of larvae because obviously larvae don't produce eggs, and vice versa. And the same applies to ascarids. Ascarid excretion of eggs in the feces of foals is quite intermittent. So one day you'll have a really high count, the next day it may be low. So if you happen to take your sample on a low day, you'll think you're okay, but in fact you probably have got. So any ascarid eggs in a foal is potentially serious.
Thank you for that.
It's really interesting. Thanks.
The results back. Can you read that out?
Yes, so the answers to the poll is that tapeworm burdens, we've had a 0% have had problems. Ascarids, interestingly, is 50%, so that's the highest. Diastosomans is 25%, and any other worm-related problem was 25%. So we're seeing tonight, mainly people are having problem with ascarids. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, great. Right, Emma, have you got some questions there? And I think we'll open it up. We've got Diane, we've got Nikki, we've got Tim. We've got a question we've got so many questions, but I think if we can start working our way through some of them, because that's what people that wanted to hear tonight, they've got the questions. We've got a panel of experts. So, yeah, far away.
Something more kind of a case study one. So I have a slightly older mare I've brought in over the winter. She's come with a high worm egg count. I've now got an under control. I'm currently able to successfully get her in foal. Could this be worm damage done? Nothing out of the ordinary on all exams done by vets, and it's all natural cover.
Who's the best word? You're a pre-pro person, I suppose.
Yeah, Monica and I are quite passionate about this. So that's part of our worming questionnaire, is that we're trying to give mares the best chance fertility wise. So we want to know not just that they've had a fecal egg count done and it's low, but have they been thinking about tapeworms and encysted larvae as well? So that's, part of our package here, that we do think that if the mare, so breeding is a luxury, so if the mare isn't feeling her best and at her best, then is it likely going to have an impact on reproduction? I think clinical disease in older horses, unless they look absolutely terrible, it's probably unlikely that that's why she hasn't gotten foal. But we definitely have horses that arrive, and I have owners saying, I'm just really struggling to get weight on them, and we look deeper into it, and maybe it is worms that are the problem. But I think if the horse looks relatively healthy and is putting on weight and doing all those other things, but possibly, I think with reproduction, there's so many factors of why they can't be getting in foal. Stallion factor. I always like to blame the stallions.
Never stallion's fault. Tell you now.
It's the big one. Definitely.
Brilliant. We'll try and keep this quite short and snappy because we've got so many to get through.
Okay.
Emma.
So what's the growing routine for mares, foals, or stallions coming into the stud, including isolation and mixing?
Let's come back to you again.
Okay, so our worming questionnaire is that we want to know that in the last 6 months, some people have either tested or treated for tapeworms and encysted larvae, and that they have done a fecal egg count. They can show us evidence of that in the last month or 6 weeks. We do try to isolate them, and once we establish that, we're not perfect. We did discuss it with Laura, should we just treat everything with the moxidectin and praziquantel worm when they arrive and isolate them and then turn them out? But we try to have trust in our clients. So we try to trust that people, when they're filling out the poll question, are being truthful, so that we're not just wording everything, basically. So it takes some trust in the clients.
Yeah, thank you for that. And Diane, a question for you. Yeah, somebody's put a question in: can overworming actually do more harm than good?
It depends what they mean when they say by overworming. So if it's just in terms of the dosage rate, so if they give, say, 700 kilograms instead of 500 kilograms, no, that can't. It can, however, if you've got a something like amoxidectin and you give a whole syringe to a foal, then that can, because it's outside of the safety guidelines. If they're talking about overworming, as in giving multiple worming treatments, like we used to with the old rotational interval worming programs, then that can cause, that's how resistance develops. So that's a definite thing to avoid. So it depends on the definition of overworming.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Emma?
We've got Stephanie Wood has asked, liver fluke is endemic in sheep and can cause serious issues in horses. Are you concerned that when using sheep, and have you seen it before?
Who would best answer? I don't know, Nikki, do you know? Or Tim? Yeah.
I can take that. So liver fluke is a problem in ruminants, cattle and sheep, and potentially they can contaminate the pasture. It's usually a problem on wet, marshy land because there's an intermediate, what's called an intermediate host. So the horse, sorry, the ruminant passes the fluke eggs in the droppings, which then contaminate the pasture, and they then enter into a snail on the pasture, and the snail is their so-called intermediate host, and the horse then grazes that pasture and eats the snails at the same time and then become infected. So it is a problem. Horses can get liver fluke and get liver disease as a result of it. So especially if you have a wet, marshy land, then you need particular care that your ruminants are not infected by fluke. So you need to make sure that they are appropriately managed as well.
So, fair answer. I think that's going to be the hardest question for tonight, maybe. I think you're going to win the prize for that one.
Next one.
Yeah.
Would you alternate moxie and fenbendazole in young foals insistent redworms?
Diane or Tim, I think that's a good one.
Sorry, for insisted redworms, well, the problem with fenbendazole, even the 5-day fenbendazole, is that there's so much resistance to this drug. The 5 days won't work if there's resistant cytostomins. So again, this is where it's important to do your egg count reduction test, so you know which anthelmintics are actually effective in your particular circumstance or your premises. If both drugs are known to work and are effective against cytostomins, then you could certainly use both drugs, and you could alternate them if you wish. Yeah.
Thank you. Nikki, just a question for you. Are some wormers now becoming ineffective? Do you see that?
Sorry, is this for me? I mean, yes is the very short answer to that. There's resistance to all classes of drugs, really. In different parasites, and in different parasites there seem to be drugs that are there's more widespread resistance to certain classes depending on the parasite you're talking about. But unfortunately, this is what Tim was saying, you really need to be looking at local resistance patterns and looking at what actually works on your farm, because whilst we can sort of draw some conclusions from situations globally, it really is the local resistance patterns that are important, and what resistance is in the parasites that are currently on your pastures. So I think there are certain things that, if you look at the CANTER guidelines, for example, they'll talk about in the young stock about using particular actives, particular drugs for particular parasites, and that's often based on our understanding of currently, where the best efficacy is or what's the most suitable drug. But still, it does come down to local levels. Even within those guidelines, there may be farms who have resistance to some of the drugs that are recommended, and that's why it's important to do the fecal egg count reduction testing that Tim was talking about, and that's why, and Diane was talking about trying to have a one size fits all approach. there's a framework which you can use to help answer those questions on your farm, but it's really hard to be able to definitively say, you know, use drug A, use drug B, because it's going to be highly variable. So sorry, that was a short answer followed by a longer one.
No, that's great. Emma.
So if a mare that recently had a foal comes back with a high red worm after a blood test, what would you do?
Diane, did you hear that one?
Yeah, I did. I think it depends on the blood test really, because if they're talking about the small red worm blood test, it's not recommended or it's not accurate in foals. The small red worm blood test should be used in low risk horses to assess whether to give them oxidectin or not in high risk horses to assess.
Sorry, Diane, I think the question was the mare has recently had a foal and the mare's level is high on the blood test. Sorry.
Rather than fold.
Yeah.
Rather than fold.
Right.
I see.
Sorry.
I mean,
this comes down into the grey again, because the antibodies can be retained for a longer period of time. And if this is just a single blood test at a single point in time, you'd need to know, when was the mare last wormed? When did it last have a blood test? What has its fecal counts been previously? Is it showing any clinical symptoms? And this all comes down into the grey again, in that there's no standard single answer for a situation like that. You've got to delve in deeper and find out more about it. So, you know, I cannot give an answer to say you need to do this. I would say you need to find out more about it and then make the appropriate decision.
Yeah. No, it's a bit like saying my mare's in season, when do I AI? You have to find out a lot more information about it before you actually AI. Right, Emma.
Yeah, probably one for Edward. So with the spreading of your own manure, how long do you leave it to break down before you spread it?
It's usually can be up to a year, but what we do with our muck is because we turn it, so we put it up in heaps, and we would turn it every 3 or 4 weeks sometimes, depending on the time of year and how much, if it's wet. So it just turns from straw and muck into a black mulch, and that can take a minimum of 6 months or up to a year. And when it's being turned, like we are able to do, you know, every so many weeks or months, it's very hot, so it's cooking it as well. So it's killing things that are in there. So I suppose, you know, you're up to a year possibly before we're spreading it back on. And as I said, everything is killed off that's within it.
Thank you.
Another one is underdosing affecting the resistance problem, i.e. not having an accurate rate for the horse or pony and giving a lower dose.
God, I'm glad I'm not answering this question. That's all I can say.
Tim, or Diane, to take that.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Underdosing and overdosing are both going to promote resistance. So it's important that the accurate weight of the animal being wormed and dose accordingly. Because if you underdose it, you won't kill all the parasites, and you will actually encourage resistance, as will worming too frequently. So both are equally dangerous.
Diane or Nikki or Tim, you know, what's the sort of biggest myths around worming that you still see exist today?
Do you want me to? So we've done some survey work called Project Worms, which we sent surveys out to horse owners, the general horse owning public, and also to stud owners and managers, just asking them how they do parasite control. And I think over the last few years, things have changed and things have improved, and people aren't worming as frequently and regularly, doing blanket worming like they used to. So there is a slow change, and it's all about human behavior, isn't it, to get people to change what they've been used to doing for years. But still, there's quite a significant number of people that just do blanket worming and worm however many every month or every few months with a wormer, or rotating the wormer every time. So we really need to get away from that, and we need to promote this sort of risk assessment and only worm and do targeted worming, where you only worm where it's really necessary, so that we try and protect these wormers, because resistance is now is such a massive and growing problem all over the world.
No, I think you see a lot of these myths for years, and I think, you know, when you get sort of into a routine for doing it, and their father did that and their grandfather did that, sometimes it's hard to break the habit. So very much of that. That's great.
Can I just add a myth? Because I think, and it's just to reiterate one that Tim's already said earlier, it's about fecal egg counts correlating directly with worm burdens. And that people need to understand that when they're doing a fecal egg count, what they're looking for are the horses that are shedding high numbers of eggs and contaminating the pasture. It's not necessarily telling you about the ones that have the highest burden. And so I think, because you'll find that some horses seem to be high shedders, and the ones that are in the high shedding group seem to stay in the high shedding group, and the ones that aren't high shedders don't seem to change as much. So if you can identify in a group of horses your high shedders by frequently doing your testing, that's what you're doing. That's what you're doing the fecal egg count for. You're not doing it to determine per se the burden in the horse, particularly on a, you know, one-off individual samples. They don't tell us that, and I think that is a myth that seems to, or a misunderstanding about how you use the test.
No, brilliant, thank you. You've got those. I think we'll do a couple more questions and then we'll start wrapping up. We've been going for an hour and a half now, but it's great to see so many questions coming in. Yeah, Emma?
Yeah, so done sport horses, and asked 2 questions. So how close to a mare foaling would you worm the mare? And when you worm the young horses during summer and winter, do you do it in the pens/fields or get them in for it?
So at Twemlow's we used to, this is another thing that Laura helped us with, we were worming routinely with ivermectin pre-foaling for Strongyl's Westery, so those thread worms that they can pick up through the milk. And then Laura kind of brought us to the attention that we don't have a problem with that. We knew we didn't have a problem with that because anytime we have a foal with diarrhea, we send off samples to Rosdale's and they've never come back with any signs of those eggs in our foal species. So it's not something that you need to blanket treat the mares with. And so we've stopped doing that. And I have a lot of people ask me, oh, how do I worm my pregnant mare when they pick them up from Twemlow's? And essentially, you should have them on the same management program that you have, whether they're pregnant or not pregnant. So if your mare is due her normal fecal egg count to check whether she needs treatment or not, and it's the springtime, then that's fine to do that. And if it's in the spring that you do your tapeworm, saliva or blood test, then to do that and to treat. So just continue everything as normal, I would say, and you don't need to, if you're on a good program and a good plan, then you don't need to change. If you're not sure that you're on a good program and a plan, then speak to your vet, speak to any of these amazing people on the panel tonight, so Diane and Laura, and things about how things need to change, but essentially it should all stay the same, pregnant or not pregnant.
And a question sort of from my side is, if you have a horse coming into the stud and you think, oh, it's particularly wormy, and you give it the wormer, how long should you leave it before it flushes all those worms out, so it's an eggs out, before you mix it with others? Is there a sort of time, what's the time period associated with that?
I might ask Tim and Diane to help me on this one. Laura and I have talked about it a lot. So she says that 24 hours is, if we can manage 24 hours, that's great. But how long do we definitely need to leave them in for before we turn them out to stop them infecting the pasture? Is there an answer to that, Tim or Diane?
I don't think we know exactly the answer to that, but I would agree 24 hours is sensible. But of course, if you worm a mare coming in, and she's got resistant worms, and you worm using a wormer to which they're resistant, they will still excrete eggs after worming. So this is where, again, if it's possible, which I know it won't be necessarily possible in studs when you've got visiting mares, but if you can do a 14-day sample afterwards to check that you haven't got resistance before you contaminate your pasture with resistant worms.
Yeah, that's really great.
Emma?
Yeah, so 2 pretty similar questions. So how long do you need to rest the pasture from horses or use sheep to break the worm cycle?
Tim and Diane, again, you're up.
Diane, do you know that one?
That's one of those questions that there's not really a definite answer to. It has been put forward that for tapeworm they should be rested for 9 months, and that makes a difference. Equally, over winter makes a difference if there's a frost or something, but there's no definitive research I'm not aware of. Maybe Nick or Tim are, as to how long the eggs and the larvae last in the pasture. And one of the reasons for that is because it's variable based on weather, because depending where you are in the country, what weather you're exposed to, that, and also what pasture management techniques you're employing, that can affect the length of time that you need to rest them for. I suppose the answer is as long as possible. Certainly a grazing season if you can. But again, I haven't got any research to say that is definitively going to make a difference.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
There is some limited evidence in ascarids, I think, that certainly foals from one season are often infected by eggs left from the previous season's foals, which suggests that you're going to get a percentage of eggs that are overwintering and still infective. So that's why the sort of recommendation is to, if possible, not use the paddocks for your young, vulnerable young stock in consecutive years, even if they've been rested over winter, because there still could be infective ascarid eggs on those pastures. Certainly, that's from an ascarid point of view, which is my pet subject.
I think there's also a bit of limited information about Sarthostomins, and the recommendation from work I think was done in Sweden that you should rest that pasture from the end of one grazing season to midway through the next grazing season in order to reduce the contamination sufficiently that you're not going to risk infecting them again.
No, thank you, and thank you for everybody. We're going to wrap up with one question for you all now, all the panelists. Just to sort of give a bit of advice to all the people out there that are watching. If every breeder watching tonight changed just one thing tomorrow to better protect their foals, what should it be and why? And we might as well, let's go around the table here. Edward?
I suppose I'm very much coming from the paddock side, and something that's sort of obviously been drummed home, is the removal of muck, removal of dung from the paddocks. I think that has to be, as much as one can possibly do. That's really an area, and obviously using the sheep wherever possible.
Thank you. Rebecca?
I don't want to pick just one, but
a big one.
I got to pick one. I suppose for me, I think I had my head in the sand for a long time that, we do this program, we worm, so we won't have problems. And for my biggest thing that I want all people listening tonight is just, I have some clients that come and they always want to hear about new things that we're trying, new things that we're doing. I have others that come and maybe think, oh no, I did that and that doesn't work, and maybe have their ears closed. But I think always being open to constantly trying to change and improve, and that's one thing that's great about working with Edward. He's always willing to push the boundaries and keep changing, keep adapting, and that's, I think, with the situation with the worms, that's what's really important, to keep adapting, keep pushing, and keep changing and trying to improve things, not just having the same old thing and doing the same old thing every year and hoping that it's all gonna be fine.
And sorry, I've got a question myself as well. Chain harrowing, is that a good or bad thing to do? We did it for years and years, chain harrowing, spreading that around the field. Another thing I used to say years ago, chain harrowing on a sunny day. Again, this might be a bit, used to burn the, kill the worms off quicker, but maybe again, I think
you need to come in with your sweeper afterwards.
Yes.
Smiling to what you did.
I told you I'm very, this is not my forte. Ask me any question on sports team and I can answer it, but not on that. So anyway, moving on. Yes, Alex, what's one thing that you would tell a breeder to change to or do tomorrow?
I think we all know what I'm going to say. I'd say fecal egg counts.
But not just fecal egg counts, do you?
Yeah, well.
Yeah.
If you do fecal egg counts, just to see where the worm egg burdens are, and so you're not spreading the worms around as much. That would be my one thing. I think that's the best thing, in my opinion. But
I'm a bit biased.
Yeah, I've got a best interest. Okay. Nikki.
Pickup poo. That would be top of pickup poo. You know, foals are not born with worms; they have to acquire them. So break the transmission. Pickup poo.
Yeah, you're in Edward's camp, obviously. Very much so. Diane.
I think that one of the biggest risks are the things you don't know, the assumptions that you're making. So replace the grey, do a risk assessment test, and replace assumptions with knowledge.
Yeah. And Tim.
I guess test, and target your treatments and get professional advice. So get advice from someone who understands parasitology in horses and understands your own premises and how you work.
Yes, very good. Well, thank you very much for everybody there. We'll come back to you again in a second, but we're just going to sort of wrap it up now. I think our PowerPoint presentation not working, is that right? But that's what we'll move on. So really, the next one was just finishing off now. Edward's going to give a very quick overview. Is that right, Edward? On your, it just says overview, Edward, just about.
Well, the season, we're midway through the season. Foals are popping out. We're nearly halfway through foaling. You know, mares coming for AI, embryo transfers busy. Semen's coming from stallion AI next door. So it's very much, we've got another 3 months to go. So, and the problem mares, people are starting to get in that time of year where they've tried and the mare's maybe not in foal. What do they do? You know, it's something that we very much support clients with throughout the country. If you've got difficult breeding mares, it's always Rebecca's challenge and from that side. So thank you.
And the next one, hopefully this poll question works. This is a very important poll question. Challenge of the night is Nature Safe, and we always ask if you enjoyed tonight, if you can go on to Nature Safe's website and donate a £5, that would be amazing. Every little penny goes to helping species. But if you want to take that leap of faith and go that little bit more, there's a poll question, hopefully it's come up. Has it come up yet? Saying that, yes, I would like to jump and support the wildlife and Nature Safe. If you could just, if you're interested in that, tick that box. No, not tick the first one, because that's absolutely no way. The next one, yes, I'm there with my parachute on, and no, I'd love to help in another way. So if you can tick one of those, that'd be amazing. We're actually doing, we've got about 10 or 15 vets signed up. So I don't know whether I can just get Tim into this or not. So, yeah, into this. But on the 12th and 13th of August, we're doing a big skydive. You're only going to raise £450. You get the jump for that as well. And I will even hold your hand and jump out with you. You won't be strapped to me, so you're lucky for that side of it. So if you would like to take part in that, we would love to have you on board. So please tick that, and if you tick number 2 or 3, we will obviously come back to you. So I'd love to hear from you on that. The winner tonight, oh, Sarah, can we turn the camera back onto you, because you've got something on your, I'll do that. About the Directory and Breeders Club.
Yeah, absolutely. So not only do we do the webinars, we have got the Breeders Club that we're running. We've got well over 600 members now. Head to our homepage of stallionai.com, click on the Breeders Club little tab, and you can join up for free. We do various different events, get your tickets to auctions and that kind of thing. So please do come and join us. It's a really great little community that we're building up together, all to help breeders all over the world. We're also selling our Easy Foal at the moment. So if you are foaling down, we have an Easy Foal. Have a look at the shop section on our website, and you can find out information there about that. But it's a little sensor that goes on the mare's foal, and it sends you a text when the mare's going to foal. I think we've had to restock about 5 times already this year. Yeah, they're absolutely flying out the door. And the team are at hand. We're open 7 days a week for stallion choices. We've got a choice of over 50 stallions with us, fresh and chilled at Stallion AI. We've got 350 European imports, and there's about 1,500 frozen straws. So there's plenty to go from. The team are great. Everyone's so knowledgeable and helpful. If you need some advice, pick up the phone and have a chat with us. We love talking to people and helping you get your mare involved. Okay.
Thank you, Sarah, for that. And we have a winner. So drum roll. The night's winner is Yvonne Simmons. Congratulations.
Really nice.
Fantastic.
Nice.
Yeah. Amazing.
We want one of your miniature donkeys on exchange for winning.
Yeah. Donkeys.
No, we don't.
Yeah, that's another question. So asked, do different breeds of horse, are they susceptible to worms and others? But anyway, maybe that's another question. Yeah, like donkeys and warmbloods and all sorts. So, anyway, so congratulations. Don't forget lunchtime live every Friday. Sarah takes you around the stallions. Just want to sort of thank the team here. Obviously, we've got Sarah's been behind that camera all night tonight.
Indy's gone on a hen do.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
I'm also getting married, so we'll start saving up. And people start buying these stuff for these. And then we got Olivia, right? And Emma was on questions tonight, and obviously their brother. Obviously, great privilege to be here and seeing his amazing paddock management and everything else he does on the stuff farms with sort of hundreds of mares that come through a year. So it's vitally important this time. And obviously, yeah, we got Rebecca here who actually came up with this idea. And it sounded like a good idea at the time, saying that, yeah, can we do a webinar? And about 3 months ago, that sounded a brilliant idea, but actually today it was, yes, we're having second thoughts. Anyway, we hopefully pulled it off. And Alex did an amazing job on your worm count today, so thank you very much. And then behind the camera or the desk and putting them all together, I think we've got Ollie as well. And we've done rehearsal after rehearsal. These things do not just happen. And I have to admit, Sarah writes all these storyboards up with Rebecca to try and make it as seamless as possible. So there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes to pull these together. And we really appreciate every single one of you coming along, because without you, we wouldn't be doing it. And we always want to hear more if there's other subjects, but we have got our next webinar is on the 24th of June, and it's about the healthy foal blueprint.
Yeah.
Right. Do you want to explain just a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we've done lots on foaling the mare and when the foal comes out and is delivered, and what we wanted to do is now, right, you've got your foal and you've brought it home from Tremlos potentially, and what do I do now, and all about rhodococcus, so with scanning the lungs and bendy legs and how do we manage those things, and nutrition is such a key thing now with managing the health of foals, so we wanted to do kind of a follow-up to all of our foaling webinars.
So look out for that, but most of all, I've really got to thank our other panelists that come in tonight. So Tim Mayer, thank you so much. You are a legend through and through. You all are, and I think we've got one of the. We haven't just got one expert here on worming. We've got about 5 or 6 experts here, which is quite incredible. So thank you, Tim. Thank you, Diane. Absolutely incredible. Your presentation of work. Laura, yeah, your video was fantastic, and Nikki, thank you so much for your input as well. So you really do bring so much to these webinars. We're always here talking. It's great to bring fresh faces into what we're doing. So thank you for that. And thank you everybody else who's watching. So really big thank you from all of us. And we look forward to seeing you on the 24th of June, talking about happy, healthy foals and blueprint for that. Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.